Captain Lee Tae-min walked slowly through the long hallway that led to the biggest meeting room in the galaxy. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that showed moving pictures of stars and planets. The floor under his feet was so smooth. It looked like glass, but it never got slippery. His heavy boots made soft sounds as he walked. Each step felt like it weighed more than the last one. Behind him walked 12 other humans. They were the best that Earth had to offer. Ambassador Park So Young was there with her neat black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Kim Hyejin carried a small bag with medical supplies because she never went anywhere without them. General Park Min-ho stood straight and tall like a soldier should. His uniform was perfect and clean. Admiral Choi Dong-hyun looked tired because he had been traveling between star systems for weeks. The hallway seemed to go on forever. The walls showed pictures of the first time aliens met each other thousands of years ago. It showed how they made peace and built cities together. It showed how they formed the Galactic Council to make decisions for everyone. But none of those pictures showed humans because humans were new to all of Thistamin. Remembered the first time he saw this place 50 years ago, he was just a young officer. Then the aliens seemed so wise and powerful. He thought humans were lucky to be invited to join their club. He thought the council would help humanity grow and learn. He was wrong about almost everything. The big doors opened in front of them. They were huge and made of metal that looked like it had stars inside it. The room beyond was bigger than any building on Earth. It was round and went up so high that the ceiling looked like the night sky. Thousands of seats were arranged in circles going up and up. Each seat had a different shape because each alien species had a different body in. The center was a small platform where speakers stood. It looked very small compared to the huge room around it. The platform had lights that made sure everyone could see who was talking. There were screens everywhere, showing words in hundreds of different languages. The air smelled like flowers and metal and something else that humans could never identify. The alien representatives were already in their seats. The Altarians sat in the highest section because they were the oldest and most important. They had blue skin and 6 fingers on each hand. Their leader was Elder Vexstar, who had been in charge of the council for 300 years. He was taller than any human and his eyes were bright yellow. The Xanthari sat in another section. They looked like big cats that walked on 2 legs, but their fur was silver, and they had 4 arms. Each arm could move separately, and they used all of them to talk. The mollusk people from the water planets sat in special tanks, filled with purple liquid that they needed to breathe. There were so many different aliens that Tae-min had stopped trying to count them all years ago. Some had tentacles instead of arms, some had scales instead of skin, some were made of rock and metal, some glowed with their own light. Each species was different, but they all had one thing in common. They all thought humans were not important. The human section was in the lowest part of the room. It was small and plain. The seats were just regular chairs, not the fancy floating platforms that the important species got. The message was clear. Humans were new, and humans were not trusted, and humans did not get to make important decisions. Tae-min walked down to the speaking platform. His team followed him, but they had to stay in the human section. Only the main speaker was allowed on the platform rose up slowly so everyone could see him better. The lights got brighter, and suddenly thousands of alien eyes were looking at him. He had done this many times before, but it never got easier. His mouth felt dry and his heart was beating fast. He knew that what he was about to say would change everything for humanity. He knew that some of the aliens wanted to help, but most of them just wanted humans to be quiet and do what they were told. Elder Vexstar stood up. In his high seat, his voice was deep and loud, and it echoed through the whole room. He spoke in the old language that all council members were supposed to understand, but then machines translated it into every language at once. The elder said that the council had been thinking about the human request for 50 years. He said they had talked about it many times. He said they had asked their wisest advisors what to do. He said they had prayed to their gods for guidance. All of this was lies, and everyone knew it. The council had made up their mind about humans from the very beginning. The vote was about whether humans could build new cities on new planets. The council said humans could only live on 12 worlds, even though humans had the ships and the technology to go to 100 worlds. The council said humans were growing too fast. The council said humans needed to learn patience before they could spread across the galaxy, but the real reason was fear the other species had. seen how quickly humans learned things. They had seen how humans could solve problems that aliens could not figure out. They had seen how humans never gave up even when things looked impossible. The aliens were afraid that if humans spread to too many worlds, they would become too powerful. The voting began. Each species leader stood up and said their choice. The numbers appeared on the big screens for everyone to see. The Altarians voted no. The Zenthari voted no. The Mollusk people voted no. One by one, each species said that humans could not expand beyond their current worlds. A few small species voted yes. The bird people from the cold planet said humans had helped them when they were sick. The rock people from the desert world said humans had shared their technology freely. The crystal beings said humans were honest in their trade deals. But these species were not powerful enough to change anything. The final count showed on every screen in the room: 8,000 votes against human expansion, only 300 votes in favor. It was not even close. The council had spoken and humanity had lost again. Just like they had lost every other important vote for 50 years. Elder Vexstar smiled as he looked down at Taman. His yellow eyes were bright with satisfaction. He had won again like he always did. He had kept the young species in their place like he always did. He had shown them that the old ways were the best ways like he always did. Park So Young closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She had spent 30 years building friendships with alien diplomats. She had learned their languages and their customs. She had eaten their food and sung their songs. She had done everything possible to make them see that humans were good allies, but none of it had mattered. Dr. Kim Hyjin looked at her medical bag and thought about all the alien patients she had saved. She had worked for free on planets where the local doctors could not help. She had shared her knowledge with anyone who asked. She had taught alien medical students everything she knew, but the council still saw her as just another human who did not belong. The silence in the room was complete. Everyone was waiting to see what the humans would do. Most species just accepted defeat and tried again later. Some species begged for another chance. Some species got angry and made threats. But humans were different, and everyone was about to find out how different. Min looked around the room at all the alien faces. He saw fear in some eyes and satisfaction in others. He saw confusion in many faces because they did not understand why humans cared so much about expansion. He saw pity in a few faces from the species that had voted to help humanity. Then he spoke, and his voice was quiet, but it carried clearly through the perfect sound system of the chamber. He said the words that would change everything. He said the words that would start a new chapter in galactic history. He said the words that would make the universe tremble. Very well, he said. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. The silence that followed was deeper than the space between stars. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of the council chamber. Dr. Kim Hyjin stood in her medical tent on the planet Kepler 442b, watching her team pack up their equipment. The tent was full of alien patients who were sick with a terrible disease that made their skin turn green and their breathing become difficult. The local aliens were called Tenthari, and they looked like tall, thin people with tentacles instead of hair. They had been grateful when the human medical team arrived. 6 months ago, the human doctors had medicines that worked better than anything the Tenthari had ever seen. They had machines that could see inside bodies without cutting them open. They had treatments that could cure diseases that had killed Tenthari for thousands of years. But now the humans were leaving. The order had come from Earth, just like it had come to every human team working in Council space. All humans were to return home immediately, no exceptions, no delays, no time to finish their work. Governor Shalfin of the Tenthari came to the medical tent. His tentacles were drooping, which meant he was very sad or very worried. In this case, he was both. The disease was spreading faster than his people could treat it without the humans. Many Tenthari would die. Please stay, he said to Dr. Kim. His voice was shaking. You are the only ones who can help us. We will pay you anything you ask. We will give you anything you want. Dr. Kim looked at the sick aliens lying on the beds in her tent. She had been treating them for weeks and was close to finding a cure that would save them all, but the orders were clear: all humans must leave Council space immediately. The new human government did not want any of their people helping Council members. The Council made their choice, Dr. Kim said quietly. Her voice was heavy with sadness. They decided they did not need human expertise. Now they must live with that choice. She turned away from the governor and continued packing her equipment. Her team worked in silence. They all felt bad about leaving, but they understood why it had to happen. For 50 years, humans had helped the council species with their problems. For 50 years, humans had shared their knowledge and technology. For 50 years, humans had been treated like children who did not know anything important. The human transport ship arrived the next day. It was big and gray, and it had weapons that could destroy a small moon. The Tenthri gathered around the landing pad to watch the humans leave. Many of them were crying, which looked strange because their tears were blue instead of clear as the ship lifted off. Dr. Kim looked down at the planet through a small window. She could see the cities where the disease was spreading. She could see the hospitals that would soon be full of patients they could not help. She could see the future of a species that might not survive without human medicine. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. The humans were really leaving. They were not just making threats or trying to get attention. They were actually pulling their people out of council space and going back to their own worlds on the trade station at Vega Nebula. Admiral Choi Donghae was giving orders to his fleet captains. The 7th Human Fleet had protected this area for 15 years. They had fought off pirates and raiders. They had rescued ships in trouble. They had kept the space lanes safe for all the alien traders. Now the alien merchants were gathering at the station, begging the humans not to leave. Captain Yoon Mira watched from the bridge of her destroyer as hundreds of alien ships surrounded the human fleet. Some of the aliens were offering money, others were offering trade deals. A few were even offering to join the humans and leave the council. Sir, Captain Yoon said to Admiral Choi, "We are getting thousands of messages from civilian ships. They want to know if we will still help them if they get attacked by pirates." The admiral looked out at all the alien ships. His face was hard like stone. He had spent most of his life protecting these aliens and their trade routes. But the council had made it clear that humans were not welcome as equals. The council wanted human protection, but they did not want to give humans any real power. Inform all vessels that human protection services are no longer available to council member species. He said, "We have our own people to protect now." The alien ships began to panic. Some of them tried to follow the human fleet when it jumped to hyperspace, but human ships were faster, and they quickly disappeared into the darkness between stars. The aliens were left alone in space that had been safe for 15 years but would not be safe much longer. On the planet Arcturus, Prime Company President SEO Junho was in his office looking at reports from all over the galaxy. Human companies were cutting ties with alien partners. Human factories were stopping production of goods that aliens needed. Human traders were refusing to carry alien cargo. The aliens had not realized how much they depended on human business. Human companies made the best computers and the strongest metals. Human factories could produce goods faster and cheaper than anyone else. Human traders went to dangerous places that other species avoided. Now all of that was gone. The aliens would have to figure out how to make their own computers and metals. They would have to find new ways to transport their goods. They would have to learn how to protect themselves from pirates and raiders. The economic reports were getting worse every day. Stock markets on alien worlds were crashing. Factories were closing because they could not get the materials they needed. Ships were stuck in port because they could not get repairs. Some alien leaders tried to contact the humans directly. They sent messages offering better trade deals. They promised to support human expansion if the humans would just come back. But the humans did not answer. The humans had made their choice, and they were sticking to it. The council tried to hold emergency meetings, but they could not agree on what to do. Some members wanted to offer the humans better terms. Others wanted to use military force to make the humans come back. A few suggested that maybe the humans were right and the council needed to change, but Elder Vexstar refused to admit that he had made a mistake. He told the council that humans were just having a temper tantrum. He said they would come back when they realized they needed the council more than the council needed them. He said everything would go back to normal in a few months. He was wrong about everything. The humans were not having a temper tantrum. They were starting a revolution, and the revolution was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. By the end of the 6th month, the first non-council species had officially joined the humans. The Kepler Mining Consortium was a group of species that had been kicked out of the council years ago for being too independent. They had survived on their own and built a successful business empire when the humans offered them a partnership. The Kepler species jumped at the chance they had always respected. Human determination and ingenuity, they had traded with humans secretly, even when the Council said they should not. The partnership announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. If the humans could make deals with non-Council species, then they did not need the Council at all. In fact, they might be better off without the Council holding them back. More species began to reconsider their loyalty to the Council. The bird people from the cold planets started talking about leaving. The rock people from the desert worlds began making secret contact with human diplomats. Even some minor Council species began to wonder if they were on the wrong side. The galaxy was changing. The old order that had ruled for thousands of years was starting to crack, and at the center of it all were the humans who had decided that being treated fairly was more important than being safe. The ripples were spreading, and soon they would become waves that would wash away everything the Council had built. 1 year after leaving the Council, humanity was no longer the same species that had begged for permission to expand. Engineer Zhang Wusung stood on the cliff overlooking New Bazend, the first city built on the planet Kepler 186f. The city was growing so fast that new buildings appeared every day. The construction crews worked around the clock using machines that could build a skyscraper in a week. This planet had been off limits under Council rules. The aliens said it was too close to their territory. They said humans might use it as a base for military operations. They said humans should be happy with the 12 worlds they already had. Now the planet was home to 10 million humans, and the population was growing every month. The terraforming had been completed in 8 months instead of the usual 5 years. Human engineers had developed new techniques that could change a planet's atmosphere faster than anyone thought possible. Sung looked at his tablet showing the reports from 50 other worlds where humans were building new cities. The Council had tried to limit humanity to 12 worlds. Now humanity had colonies on over 60 worlds, and they were still expanding. The speed of expansion was possible because humans no longer had to follow Council building codes, Council environmental regulations, Council safety inspections. Every project had to be approved by committees that took years to make decisions. Every plan had to be reviewed by aliens who did not understand human engineering. Without those restrictions, human colonies could adapt to local conditions quickly. If a planet had dangerous storms, they built underground cities. If a planet had extreme temperatures, they built climate-controlled domes. If a planet had hostile wildlife, they built defensive walls. The military training world of Titan-based General Park. Minho was watching human soldiers practice new fighting techniques. The soldiers were learning how to fight without alien support. They were learning how to use weapons that aliens had never seen. They were learning tactics that would surprise any enemy. The Council had always controlled human military development. They said human weapons were too dangerous. They said human tactics were too aggressive. They said human soldiers needed to learn patience and discipline from alien instructors. Now human soldiers were training on their own. They were faster and stronger than they had ever been. They were learning how to think like warriors. Instead of peacekeepers, they were preparing for battles that might be coming soon. The new human military was different from the old peacekeeping forces. Instead of trying to stop fights, they were learning how to win them. Instead of using alien weapons, they were building their own. Instead of following alien strategies, they were creating new ones. Dar Lim Aim Hyun was working in the research facility on Europa Station, where human scientists were making discoveries that amazed even themselves. Without Council oversight committees slowing them down, they could test new ideas immediately. They could try experiments that aliens thought were too dangerous. They could push the boundaries of science further than ever before. The facility was hidden in the ice caves of Jupiter's moon, where Council ships could not find it. Human scientists from all over the galaxy had come here to work on projects that would have been impossible under Council rules. They were developing new medicines that could cure diseases that had killed humans for centuries. They were creating new materials that were stronger than anything aliens had ever made. They were building new computers that could think faster than alien minds. The most exciting project was the new faster-than-light drive that could move ships across the galaxy in days instead of weeks. The Council had banned research into faster travel because they said it was too dangerous, but human scientists had figured out how to make it work safely. Ambassador Jung So-min was in her office on the space station that orbited Earth reading reports from diplomats who were making contact with species that had never been part of the Council. These were the forgotten species, the ones that lived on the edges of the galaxy. Many of these species had been ignored by the Council because they were too small or too poor or too independent. The Council only cared about species that had something valuable to offer. The rest were left to survive on their own, but humans were different. They reached out to species that others ignored. They offered friendship to aliens who had been rejected by the Council. They shared their technology with species that had been struggling to survive. The response was amazing. Species that had been alone for thousands of years were eager to join the human alliance. They brought knowledge and skills that humans had never seen. They offered resources from worlds that the Council had never explored. Within months, the Human Colonial Alliance included dozens of species that had never worked together before. The bird people from the cold planets brought their knowledge of extreme weather survival. The rock people from the desert worlds shared their mining techniques. The crystal beings offered their understanding of energy manipulation. Each new species made the alliance stronger. Instead of trying to control their allies like the Council did, humans treated them as equals. Each species kept their own culture and traditions. Each species had an equal voice in alliance decisions. The alliance was growing faster than anyone had expected. Even some Council species were secretly making contact with human diplomats. They were tired of being controlled by the Elder Council. They wanted to be part of something new and exciting. President Park So-young was in the Alliance capital on New Sol reviewing the latest expansion reports. The Alliance now controlled territory that was almost as large as Council space. The growth was accelerating as more species joined every month. The Alliance was not just bigger than anyone had expected. It was also different from any government the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of being ruled by the oldest and most powerful species, every member had equal rights. The Alliance made decisions by voting where every species counted the same. This was a revolutionary idea in a galaxy where power had always been based on age and strength. The Council believed that older species were wiser and should make decisions for younger ones. The Alliance believed that every species had something valuable to contribute. The Alliance military was also revolutionary. Instead of one central force that imposed peace through fear, they created a network of defensive fleets. Each member species kept their own military, but they all trained together and shared technology. This made the Alliance stronger than any single military could be. If one species was attacked, all the others would come to help. If one species had a problem, all the others would work together to solve it. The economic system was equally innovative. Instead of the Council's rigid trade rules that favored powerful species, the Alliance created free markets where anyone could trade with anyone else. Small species could compete with large ones. New companies could challenge old monopolies. The result was an economic boom that surprised everyone. Planets that had been poor under Council rule became wealthy. Trade between species increased dramatically. New technologies were developed and shared freely. Innovation exploded across Alliance space. By the end of the second year, the Human Colonial Alliance was no longer just a group of species that had left the Council. It was a new kind of civilization that was growing stronger every day. It was proof that there was a better way to organize galactic society. The Council was starting to notice the old order was being challenged by something completely new, and at the center of it all were the humans who had refused to accept that things could not be changed. The universe was about to learn what happened when humans decided to build something better. Elder Vextar stood in his private chamber, looking at the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Half of the star map was now colored in red, showing the territory controlled by the Human Colonial Alliance. The red area was growing larger every day. His blue skin had turned almost white with worry. His six-fingered hands were shaking as he touched the controls to get more detailed information. The reports were all bad. The Alliance was not just growing, it was thriving. Everything the Council had said was impossible was happening right before their eyes. How did we not see this coming? He asked himself out loud. His voice echoed in the empty chamber. He had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had maintained peace through strength and tradition, but he had never seen anything like this. The Alliance was not following any of the rules that had governed galactic civilization for thousands of years. They were making decisions. Quickly, without long debates, they were sharing technology freely, without demanding payment. They were treating all species as equals, regardless of age or power. Counselor Rithana entered the chamber without being announced, her insect-like features were clicking rapidly, which meant she was extremely agitated. She carried a data pad with the latest intelligence. Reports about Alliance activities. The reports were terrifying. The Alliance had developed new weapons that Council scientists could not understand. They had ships that could travel faster than anything in the Council fleet. They had defensive systems that made their worlds almost impossible to attack. Their military tactics are completely different from anything we have seen. Rithana said, her voice was high and sharp like breaking glass. They do not fight the way we expect them to fight. They do not use formations that we recognize. They adapt to our strategies faster than we can change them. The military reports showed that human commanders were training Alliance forces in new combat techniques. Traditional Council battle tactics were based on massive fleets meeting in open space with the largest ships, trying to destroy each other first. It was an ancient way of fighting that had worked for millennia, but the Alliance did not fight that way. They used smaller ships that moved quickly. They attacked supply lines instead of main fleets. They struck at unexpected targets and disappeared before the Council could respond. They fought like hunters instead of warriors. Admiral Vex, more of the Council defense force, had to admit that his traditional strategies were useless against Alliance tactics. Every time he tried to engage Alliance forces, they would scatter and regroup somewhere else. Every time he thought he had them trapped, they would find a way to escape. Alliance also had better intelligence than the Council somehow knew about Council military movements before they happened. They seemed to have spies in places where spies should not be able to go. They had information about Council weaknesses that should have been impossible to obtain. The economic situation was even worse. The Alliance was offering trade deals that the Council could not match. They were providing goods and services that Council members desperately needed. They were accepting species that the Council had rejected. The most shocking development was when Nexus Prime declared independence from the Council and requested to join the Alliance. Nexus Prime was one of the most important trade worlds in Council space. It was the hub where goods from dozens of systems were bought and sold. Governor Koratan of Nexus Prime had made his decision based on pure economics. Without human trade, his world's economy was collapsing. Unemployment was rising. Businesses were closing. Riots were starting in the major cities when President Co Junho offered to restore full trade relations in exchange for joining the Alliance. The choice was obvious. The people of Nexus Prime voted overwhelmingly to leave the Council and join the Alliance. This is exactly what we feared, Elder Vextar said to his advisors. If we allow this precedent, other worlds will follow. The Council's unity will shatter completely, but the precedent was already set. 3 more Council worlds declared independence within a month. The mining world of Kepler 442b, where Dr. Kim had treated the plague, joined the Alliance and requested human medical teams to return. The agricultural world of Gliese 581g joined because Alliance trade policies were much better for farmers. Each defection made the Council weaker and the Alliance stronger. The Council was losing its most productive worlds while the Alliance was gaining new resources and capabilities. Elder Vextar knew that he had to act quickly or the Council would collapse completely. He called an emergency session and invoked powers that had not been used for over 1,000 years. The Council military was mobilized for the first time since the last Great War, but mobilizing the military was much harder than anyone had expected. The Council's forces had grown soft during the long peace. They had relied heavily on human expertise and technology for decades. Now they had to learn how to fight without human support. Many of the Council's weapon systems had been designed by human engineers. Human technicians had maintained them for years. Human tactical advisors had trained the crews. Now all of that knowledge was gone. The Council's medical corps was in even worse shape. They had depended on human doctors and human medicines for so long that they had forgotten how to treat many diseases without human medical support. Council soldiers were getting sick and staying. See, if the supply lines were a disaster, human logistics companies had moved goods throughout Council space for decades. They had warehouses on every major world. They had transport ships that could carry anything anywhere. Now those ships were gone and the warehouses were empty. Admiral Vexmore tried to assemble a fleet that could challenge the Alliance. But every attempt failed. Ships broke down because human technicians were not there to fix them. Crews got sick because human doctors were not there to treat them. Supplies ran out because human logistics experts were not there to manage them. The Council's intelligence network was equally compromised. Human agents had been gathering information throughout the galaxy for years. They had contacts in every major government. They had access to communication networks that other species could not penetrate without human intelligence. The Council was blind. They did not know where Alliance forces were located. They did not know what the Alliance was planning. They did not know which Council worlds might defect next. The financial situation was catastrophic. The Council's economy had been built on trade relationships that humans had established and maintained for decades. Human companies had been the backbone of interstellar commerce. Human banks had provided credit to governments and businesses throughout the galaxy. Now the human companies were gone. The human banks had called in their loans. The human trade networks had collapsed overnight. The Council's economy was in free fall with no way to stop it. Elder Vexstar realized that the Council had made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had not just lost a member species, they had lost the species that held everything together. Humans had been the glue that made galactic civilization work, but it was too late to apologize, too late to offer better terms, too late to undo the damage that had been done. The Alliance was too strong now and growing stronger every day. The Council was too weak and getting weaker. The war was coming and the Council was not ready for it. They had spent so long relying on human strength that they had forgotten how to be strong themselves. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when the old order finally fell apart. The war began with a single ship appearing where it should not have been. Captain Bay Sung-min commanded the stealth frigate Incheon Ghost, and he had just done something that no one thought was possible. He had entered the Altarian home system without being detected, and now he was broadcasting a message to the most powerful world in the galaxy. The message was simple and direct. The human colonial Alliance demands the immediate release of all human prisoners and the recognition of our sovereignty. You have 24 hours to respond. The prisoners were humans who had been arrested on various Council worlds for refusing to obey the order to return home. Some were doctors who had stayed to treat patients. Some were engineers who had stayed to finish important projects. Some were traders who had stayed to honor their contracts. The Council had thrown them in prison and refused to let them go. Elder Vexstar had said they were criminals who had violated Alliance law, but everyone knew they were really hostages. The Council hoped that holding human prisoners would force the Alliance to negotiate. Captain Bay knew that his small ship was surrounded by the largest military force in the galaxy. The Altarian home system was protected by over 3,000 Council ships. The system had defensive stations that could destroy a moon. The system had shield generators that could stop any attack, but the captain was not worried. He had orders from the highest levels of the Alliance command. He had new technology that the Council had never seen. He had a battle plan that would shock the galaxy. Elder Vexstar's response was exactly what the Alliance had expected. The Council home fleet moved to intercept the lone human vessel. Every ship in the system was ordered to capture or destroy the Incheon Ghost. The Elder wanted to show the galaxy that the Council was still powerful. Admiral Vexmore led the fleet personally. He was confident that one small human ship could not escape from 3,000 Council vessels. He ordered his ships to form a hunting formation that would trap the humans no matter which way they tried to run. But when the Council fleet reached the coordinates where the human ship had been detected, they found something impossible. Instead of one small ship, they found a massive fleet that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. Hundreds of human ships surrounded the Council forces. The human ships had been hiding in the system's asteroid belt for weeks using stealth technology that made them invisible to Council sensors. They had been waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. The Council had walked into a trap. The Battle of Altaria began at 0800 Standard Galactic Time and ended at 1400 the same day. 6 hours of fighting that changed the course of galactic history. The Council forces had more ships But the human forces had better tactics, better technology, and better training. Commander O the Jin led a squadron of human destroyers in the opening attack. Her ships moved faster than anything the Council had ever seen. They used hit-and-run tactics that confused and scattered the larger Council fleet. The Council ships were designed for the massive fleet battles of ancient wars. They were big and heavily armed, but they were also slow and hard to maneuver. The human ships were smaller and lighter, but they could change direction quickly and strike at unexpected angles. Admiral Vexmore tried to use traditional Council battle formations, but the humans refused to fight in the expected way. Instead of meeting the Council fleet head-on, they split into small groups and attacked from all sides. The Council's massive battleships found themselves fighting dozens of smaller human ships at once. The human ships would attack and then disappear before the Council could respond. When the Council tried to pursue them, the human ships would reappear somewhere else. The most devastating moment came when the human flagship New Seoul decloaked directly behind the Council command ship. The massive human battleship had been invisible throughout the entire battle, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Admiral Vexmore realized that his entire fleet was surrounded and outmaneuvered. The humans had superior technology, superior tactics, and superior coordination. His ships were being destroyed faster than they could fight back. The battle ended when the Council command ship surrendered. Admiral Vexmore had no choice but to accept defeat. The human fleet had destroyed over half of the Council ships while losing only a few of their own. But the Battle of Altaria was just the beginning. The Alliance had been planning this war for months. They had identified every important Council installation. They had studied every weakness in Council defenses. They had prepared for a campaign that would cripple the Council's ability to resist across the galaxy. Human forces struck at key Council targets with surgical precision. They did not try to hold territory or engage in long battles. Instead, they attacked the Council's ability to coordinate and supply their forces. Communication networks were disrupted by Alliance cyber warfare experts. Supply depots were destroyed by fast-moving strike teams. Industrial worlds were blockaded by Alliance fleets. The Council's ability to wage war was being systematically dismantled. The most shocking attack came when Alliance forces appeared at the Council's primary shipyards at Kepler 438b. Engineer Jang Woo-sung, now wearing the uniform of an Alliance commander, led a team of specialists who did not destroy the facilities but captured them within hours. The shipyards were producing ships for the Alliance instead of the Council. The Council's ability to replace their losses was gone, while the Alliance could build new ships faster than ever before. The war's second phase began when Alliance forces started liberating Council worlds that wanted to join the Alliance. Many Council worlds had been considering defection but had been afraid of Council retaliation. Now, with Alliance forces protecting them, these worlds felt safe enough to declare independence. The Alliance fleet would arrive at a Council world and broadcast a simple message: you are free to choose your own government. Most worlds chose to join the Alliance. The Council's own policies had made them unpopular with many of their member species. The Alliance offered freedom and prosperity, while the Council offered only control and stagnation. The third phase of the war was the most decisive. Alliance forces began attacking Council core worlds. These were the oldest and most powerful worlds in the galaxy, the ones that had ruled over everyone else for thousands of years. The Alliance did not try to conquer these worlds. Instead, they destroyed their ability to project power. They knocked out planetary defense systems. They captured orbital stations. They blockaded major ports within 18 months. The Galactic Council existed only on paper. Their military was destroyed. Their economy was in ruins. Their member worlds had either joined the Alliance or declared independence. Elder Vexstar found himself a prisoner in his own palace. On the Altarian homeworld, Alliance forces had not invaded his world, but they had cut off all communication with the outside galaxy. He was the ruler of a single planet instead of a galactic empire. The speed of the Council's collapse had shocked everyone. Even the Alliance had not expected to win so quickly and completely, but the Council had been weaker than anyone realized. Their entire civilization had been held together by human contributions. Without human doctors, their medical system collapsed. Without human engineers, their technology stopped working. Without human traders, their economy fell apart. Without human soldiers, their military was helpless. The war ended not with a great final battle, but with a simple announcement broadcast. To every world in the galaxy, the Galactic Council has been dissolved. The galaxy is now under the protection of the human colonial alliance and our allied species. The universe had learned to fear, but what they feared was not human weapons or human ships. They feared human ideas and human determination. They feared the possibility that change was not only possible, but inevitable. The old order was gone forever, and the new order was just beginning. President Park So-young stood in the broadcasting chamber of the Alliance capital on New Seoul. The room was simple and clean with white walls and bright lights. She wore a dark blue suit that made her look serious but not threatening. Behind her was the flag of the Human Colonial Alliance, showing a star surrounded by many smaller stars representing all the member species. The camera focused on her face as she prepared to speak to the entire galaxy. Every inhabited world would receive this message. Every species would hear these words that would change everything. The moment had come to announce the new order. The Galactic Council has been dissolved, she said in a calm, clear voice. The galaxy is now under the protection of the human Colonial Alliance and our allied species. The words were simple, but their meaning was enormous. The ancient government that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was gone. The species that had controlled galactic civilization since before humans learned to make fire was no longer in power. Elder Vexstar received the message in his palace on the Altarian homeworld. He was no longer the ruler of the galaxy. He was just an old alien on a single planet. His empire had crumbled in less than 2 years. His legacy was defeat and humiliation, but the real shock came in the months that followed because the Alliance did not do what everyone expected. Instead of establishing a human empire with humans as the rulers, they created something that had never existed before. The Alliance government was truly democratic. Every member species had an equal voice in decisions that affected them. It did not matter if a species was old or young, powerful or weak, large or small. Every species got one vote, and every vote counted the same. This was revolutionary in a galaxy where power had always been based on age and strength. The oldest species had ruled because they claimed to be the wisest. The strongest species had dominated because they could force others to obey. The Alliance threw away all of those old ideas. They said that wisdom came from experience, not age. They said that strength came from cooperation, not domination. They said that good ideas could come from any species at any time. The new government worked differently than the old council. Instead of long debates that went on for months, decisions were made quickly by majority vote. Instead of committees that studied problems for years, solutions were implemented immediately. If a species had a problem, they could bring it to the Alliance government and get help right away. If a species had a good idea, they could propose it and see it happen. If a species wanted to join the Alliance, they just had to ask. Dr. Kim Hyejin was now the head of the Alliance Medical Corps, and she was busy establishing treatment centers on worlds that had never had proper health care. The plague that had started on Kepler 442b was finally eliminated, along with dozens of other diseases. Alliance medical system was based on the simple idea that every living being deserved the best possible healthcare. It did not matter what species you were, or what planet you lived on, or how much money you had. If you were sick, the Alliance would help you. Human medical technology was shared freely with all member species. Alliance doctors were trained to treat every kind of alien physiology. Alliance hospitals were built on every inhabited world. The results were amazing. Species that had suffered from incurable diseases for thousands of years were suddenly healthy. Life expectancy increased dramatically across the galaxy. Birth rates went up as parents felt confident their children would survive. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. Company President Seo Junho worked with representatives from dozens of species to create trade networks that were more efficient and fair than anything the Council had managed under the Council system. Powerful species had controlled trade and kept most of the profits for themselves. Small species had been forced to accept unfair deals or go without the goods they needed. The Alliance created free markets where any species could trade with any other species on equal terms. Small companies could compete with large corporations. New businesses could challenge old monopolies. Innovation was rewarded instead of suppressed. Worlds that had been poor under the council system became wealthy as they gained access to alliance technology and trade networks. Species that had been ignored by the council found new opportunities to prosper. The military structure was perhaps the most revolutionary change. General Park Min-ho led the effort to create a truly defensive military force that existed to protect members rather than control them, instead of one central military that imposed peace through fear. The alliance created a network of defensive fleets. Each member species maintained their own forces, but they were all trained to work together. The alliance military doctrine was based on the idea that the best defense was helping everyone defend themselves. Strong members helped weak members improve their defenses. Experienced members shared their knowledge with new members. The result was a military force that was stronger than any single empire could create. When any member was threatened, all the others would come to help. When any member had a problem, all the others would work together to solve it. The alliance also reached out to species that had never been part of any galactic government. These were the forgotten species that lived on the edges of the galaxy. The ones that had been ignored by the council. Many of these species had valuable knowledge and skills that enriched the alliance. The ice world species knew how to survive in extreme cold. The gas giant species understood atmospheric engineering. The deep space nomads had navigation techniques that amazed human pilots. As the alliance grew stronger, the galaxy became more peaceful. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to work together. Problems that had seemed impossible were solved through cooperation, but the most important change was in the way species thought about themselves and their place in the galaxy. The alliance proved that the old ways were not the only ways. Things that had been accepted as impossible could be changed. The universe learned to fear not human weapons or human technology, but human ideas. The idea that every species deserved equal treatment, the idea that cooperation was better than domination, the idea that change was not only possible but necessary. Young beings across the galaxy began to question the old traditions. They asked why things had to be the way they were. They demanded better treatment from their leaders. They refused to accept that nothing could be improved. The alliance became a symbol of hope for oppressed species everywhere. It proved that even the most powerful empires could be defeated by those who refused to give up. It showed that ordinary beings could achieve extraordinary things when they worked together. Elder Vexstar spent his final years watching the galaxy transform in ways he had never imagined. The rigid hierarchies that had ruled for millennia were replaced by flexible networks of cooperation. The fear-based peace of the Council era was replaced by the hope-based prosperity of the Alliance. On his deathbed, the former ruler of the galaxy finally understood what had really happened. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through superior force. They had won by offering something better than what existed before. They had offered freedom instead of control, cooperation instead of domination, hope instead of fear. The galaxy had chosen the human way because it was simply better than the alternative. The day humans abandoned the council was indeed the day the universe learned to fear. But what they learned to fear was not human power. It was the power of good ideas and the determination to make them real. The galaxy would never be the same. Every species, whether they admitted it or not, was grateful for the lesson. The universe had learned that change was possible, and that lesson would echo through the stars forever. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not military or political. It was proving that even the most ancient and powerful institutions could be improved by those brave enough to try. The universe had learned to dream of better tomorrows.